And for more on that, let's bring in now Louis Mizen, who survived the school shooting. He moved to the U.S. from the U.K. a few years ago. Louis, thanks so much for joining us this evening. And first of all, we'd just like to ask you how you're doing.
I'm doing okay. Obviously, I got back from Tallahassee on Wednesday to be in the town hall, and that was a really intense few days, and obviously kind of capped off a really intense week. But I've been spending the last couple of days being with friends, getting a lot of sleep, which I haven't been getting a lot of recently. So, I think these couple of days have been a good time for me to kind of sit back and actually deal with grief because it's been so intense. I haven't really had time to do that before.
And you and your classmates, you mentioned you were in Tallahassee, in the state capital, calling for change in the wake of the shooting. We know that in the meantime, the president has proposed arming some teachers with guns, also banning bump stocks and increasing the age for gun purchases. We'd like to know what you make of those proposals and how you would feel having a teacher carrying a gun.
Well, first of all, banning bump stocks is phenomenal. I think that's a great first step in the right direction. I know Governor Rick Scott has added both raising the age limit and banning bump stocks to his legislative proposal, which is fantastic. But I've spoken to a number of teachers about it, and I've spoken to a number of classmates about it, and none of us think arming teachers are a good idea. And I just want to give you this situation. You're a police officer, you know there's a shooting occurring, and you run into a building. And there are two people shooting at each other. Who's the shooter? You don't know. You have no idea who's the shooter. So not only can kids be caught in the crossfire, but you could also kill teachers who are trying to defend their students. Arming teachers only escalates the problem. A great example of that is the Cold War with Russia versus the United States. They kept adding to their nuclear stockpiles. They kept upping the ante. And now, currently we live with the constant fear of nuclear war. And that was because we kept upping the ante. And I think upping the ante here isn't what we need to do. We need to take a moment, we need to calm down, and we need to begin to, reduce the stockpile of weapons of war in the United States.
And Louis, something else that has also emerged is that we have learned that the deputy sheriff who was assigned to keep your school safe failed to go inside and confront the shooter. And we'd like to get your reaction to that revelation. I mean, do you think that action from him could have made a difference?
When it comes to people's lives, I really don't want to speculate. I don't want to speculate what could have happened if he'd gone in there. I think he should have gone in there. I think unarmed people went in there to save people. That they didn't have guns, they didn't have any training, and he did, and he should have gone in. I think it was the right thing to do to suspend him, and after that, it was his choice to resign, and that's his choice. And look, it's not his fault that people died. Could he have done something to prevent that? Yes, but placing the blame on him isn't going to help anything. He failed in his job, and his mistake cost lives, but you can't hold him up and just crucify him for that.
Okay. Louis, we also know that you were in the state capitol this week. As we mentioned, you were calling for debate on gun control. You were calling for gun control as well. How do you feel about what happened? You had some disappointments there, didn't you?
Well, actually, obviously, we all had different experiences, and my experience, and I know a lot of people I've spoken to, were actually really good. We spoke to Republicans and Democrats, and one of the things they said to us was that Republicans and Democrats have never been closer on this issue. And one of the things we asked of them was to remember that this isn't a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. It's an American issue, and there has to be an American solution. And one of the things that the Speaker of the House, the Florida House, said to me, multiple others as well, was that, they're politicians, and I know that a lot of us were expecting, they'll talk and then we'll go back to Florida and nothing will happen. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me was he said, look, we have kids in Florida public school too. This isn't just an issue that affects us. It affects you. It affects us too. Our kids go to school. We want to make sure our kids are safe. And so I'm really optimistic that we're going to get some legislation passed because they said it themselves. More has happened up there in regards to gun reform than has happened in the last 2 decades.
So you sound pretty confident that you can take this on, but ultimately, Lewis, I mean, you're going up against big money here. You're going up against, the National Rifle Association, which is an incredibly powerful lobby group, which gives a lot of money
Yeah.
to a lot of candidates in the country. So how are you going to keep the momentum going? Because right now you have the attention of the media, you have the attention of lawmakers, but as we know, sometimes that fizzles.
Yeah, and I understand the news cycle changes, but the one thing I will say about teenagers is that we like a challenge. And one of the things that my friend said we had a test on interest groups the Thursday, the next day after it happened. And she said going up against the biggest one would probably be good practice for that test. And honestly, look, we've done our research. We're not stupid. We're smart. We know we're going up against probably one of, if not the most powerful interest group in the United States, and we know it's going to be a challenge, and we know we're going to have to get stuff done. And right now, a lot of the faces of the hashtag Never Again movement have been really radical, have been really outspoken, and that's fantastic because it's drawn in media attention. But I have a feeling there's going to be a second wave of far more moderate people who are actually going to fight for specific legislation and take it step by step. We're not calling for the revocation of the Second Amendment. I'm British, but I think the Second Amendment is part of American culture, and I understand people want to feel safe with their guns. We're just asking for common sense reform. We're asking to be able to send kids to school without having to worry they won't get home at the end of the day. And we know it's going to be tough to carry this momentum, and this obviously has been the week since, but there has been so much that we've managed to accomplish. And I was at a radio station last night with kids from schools all across South Florida, and they're all backing us up. And we're the next generation of voters. And a lot of us, 16, 17, 18, we're going to be voting in the next few years. And we're going to remember this.
Right.
And we're going to vote to make changes.
And a lot of people have been so inspired, actually, by how powerful, how poignant all of you have been. And, we're talking here about the gun control debate, but before I go, I'd like to bring the conversation just for a moment back to your classmates, because, of course, we don't want to forget those who did not make it last week. Lewis, just briefly tell us, what would you like us to know about them?
I think that I went to a vigil on Thursday, and one of the things that a rabbi said there was he said, the size of the candle doesn't determine the size of the flame. And I think that 17 very, very bright flames went out on Wednesday. And those were 17 futures that could have changed the world, because some of those kids, some of them would have been Olympic athletes, some of them are geniuses that could have changed the world. And they're part of my high school family. And, our family got killed on Wednesday, and we're not going to take that lying down.
Well, it's so clear, Lewis, that their spirit lives on with you and with your other classmates there in Parkland, Florida. And we thank you so much this evening for joining us here to tell us a little bit more about what you have been going through in the past week and what you plan to do in the future. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.